Section 1. The silent separation. They don't tell you this part about awakening. They talk about peace, about enlightenment, about finding yourself. But they never tell you that the moment you wake up, you start losing people. Not because you want to, but because you no longer vibrate on the same frequency you once did. You start seeing through things you used to accept. You hear the lies in the conversations you used to enjoy. And you feel the emptiness in places you once found comfort. This is the silent separation, the invisible line that begins to form between you and the world you once called home. You'll notice it first in small ways. The jokes don't hit the same. The gossip feels heavier. The need to impress people fades into something almost childish. And you realize you're changing. Not outwardly, but internally, profoundly. The more you awaken, the less you crave noise. You start valuing silence over validation, truth over approval, depth over popularity. It's not arrogance. It's clarity. Because when your soul starts evolving, you can no longer tolerate what drains it. And people feel that. They sense that you're no longer one of them. They might not understand it, but they feel it, an unease in your calmness, a discomfort in your silence, a subtle threat in your authenticity. Because awakening changes your energy, and energy doesn't lie. You become a mirror, and mirrors make people nervous. Friends you once confided in start pulling away. Family members start labeling you as distant, cold, or self-absorbed. But you're not being distant, you're being selective. You're not cold, you're becoming clear. And you're not self-absorbed, you're finally self-aware. The truth is, awakening feels lonely because few people are ready to face what you now see. You'll look around and realize that the majority aren't living, they're performing. They're trapped in loops of ego, comparison, distraction, and they call it life. You see it everywhere. People chasing things that don't fulfill them, defending illusions that destroy them, pretending to be happy while slowly dying inside. And when you no longer participate in that madness, they call you strange. When you stop playing the game, they call you arrogant. When you stop pretending, they call you negative. But understand this. The moment you awaken, your frequency becomes incompatible with falseness. It's not that you reject others, it's that your spirit rejects what isn't real. Alan Watts once said, "The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance." And that's what awakening forces you to do. It tears away your attachments, not to punish you but to purify you. It strips you of illusions so you can finally see what's real. And what's real isn't always pleasant. You'll face your shadow. You'll question everything you once believed. You'll mourn the version of yourself that used to belong, because that self was never truly you. This is the part of awakening that hurts the most. The silence, the isolation, the realization that no one can walk this path for you. But in that silence, something remarkable happens. You begin to hear your soul again. You start noticing the subtle rhythm of life, the quiet wisdom behind every breath, every failure, every ending. You start understanding that losing people isn't loss, it's alignment. You aren't meant to keep everyone you meet. Some people enter your life to teach you detachment, to show you what you've outgrown, to remind you that love doesn't always mean staying. So yes, the spiritually awake often walk alone. But they walk in truth. And that truth, though heavy, is liberating. You'll learn to stop chasing connection and start embodying it. You'll learn that solitude is not a punishment, it's preparation. You'll realize that the loneliness you feel is simply the space being cleared for something higher to enter. The silent separation is not the end of your story, it's the beginning. Because the moment you stop needing others to validate your worth, you become free. And the world has never feared anything more than a free soul. Section 2. The mirror effect, how your presence exposes others. When you begin to wake up, you don't just see the truth, you become it. And truth has a strange effect on people. It doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It simply stands there, silent, unbending, and undeniable. And that silence is deafening to those still lost in noise. You start to notice something strange. People begin to act differently around you. Not because you've said anything wrong, but because your presence itself has changed. It's calmer, more grounded, less reactive. And that energy, that stillness, confronts them in ways words never could. You see, most people don't actually fear you. They fear the parts of themselves your presence reveals. When you're no longer trapped in illusion, you hold up a mirror, and they see their own masks slipping. That's the dark psychology of awakening. You become the reflection people spend their whole lives trying to avoid. They look at you and feel judged, not because you judge them, but because their own soul is whispering, "This is what you could be." Your peace irritates their chaos. Your detachment threatens their control. Your authenticity exposes their performance. Alan Watts once said, "The reason we want to go on and on is because we live in an impoverished present." When people live disconnected from their inner self, your presence reminds them of everything they've ignored, the dreams they abandoned, the pain they've numbed, the truth they've buried under distractions. And so they project. They accuse you of being different, distant, too serious, or too deep. They'll say you've changed. And they're right. But what they won't admit is that your growth makes them uncomfortable. Because it silently asks them, "Why haven't you?" The mirror doesn't lie. And the closer they stand to you, the more they're forced to confront the hollowness of their own existence. In psychology, this is called ego defense. The ego's primary goal is survival, not truth. So when your presence threatens its illusion, it fights back. It gossips. It criticizes. It withdraws. Because in its world, tearing down what it can't understand feels safer than facing the pain of transformation. This is why spiritually awake people rarely have many friends. Your vibration filters people without you saying a word. The ones meant for you feel peace around you. The ones not meant for you feel exposed. You stop being fun for those addicted to drama. You stop being convenient for those who seek validation. You stop being controllable for those who operate through manipulation. Because your awareness disarms every trick of the ego. And that's terrifying for them. Because they can't play the same games anymore. They can't wear the same masks. They can't pretend around you. You've seen through the illusion. And now your very existence calls theirs into question. But here, where most awakened souls suffer, they take rejection personally. They wonder, why am I always the one left out? Why do I keep losing people I cared about? Understand this. You are not losing people. You are shedding illusions. You are outgrowing vibrations that can't survive at your altitude. It's not rejection. It's resonance. When your consciousness expands, your circle contracts. Because few can breathe the air at your level of awareness. You will find that the higher you rise in truth, the smaller your tribe becomes, but also the purer it gets. One authentic soul will nourish you more than 1,000 shallow acquaintances ever could. And that's the real gift of the mirror effect. It filters your life with ruthless precision. It burns away what's false, so only the genuine remains. The awakened man or woman doesn't seek validation. They radiate presence. They don't convince, they embody. And because of that, they attract only those who are ready to see. Alan Watts said, To be free from convention is not to spurn it but not to be deceived by it. That's the essence of awakening. You stop being deceived, not just by the world, but by yourself. And that shift alone separates you from most people you'll ever meet. So the next time someone drifts away, don't chase them. They aren't rejecting you. They're rejecting their reflection in you. Let them go. You cannot awaken someone by standing in their dream. You can only shine so bright that when they're ready, they'll find the light for themselves. And that's what you are now. Not a seeker of approval, but a mirror of truth. A reminder that in a world built on illusion, authenticity will always be the greatest rebellion. Section 3. The Path of the Loner Sage. At some point on this journey, you stop fighting the silence. You stop resisting solitude. You stop trying to fill the emptiness with people, noise, or distractions. Instead, you begin to listen to it deeply. That's when you realize solitude is not loneliness. It's a sacred space, a spiritual forge where the soul reshapes itself. And every awakened soul must pass through it. When the illusions fall away and the world grows quiet, what's left is you, raw, unfiltered, unguarded. And that's where the real work begins. This is the path of the loner sage, the one who chooses silence over small talk, stillness over stimulation, truth over comfort. Society calls it loneliness, but in truth it's refinement. It's the process of detaching from everything that once defined you, so that what remains is something real, something unbreakable. Alan Watts once said, "Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone." That's what solitude does. It clears the water of your mind. It allows your emotions to settle, your thoughts to dissolve, and your awareness to rise to the surface, crystal clear. When you walk this path, people will misunderstand you. They'll say you're antisocial. They'll say you're distant. But what they don't see is that solitude is not your escape, it's your evolution. Because in silence, you learn things that noise can never teach. You learn to observe your own mind, to see thoughts not as truths, but as waves passing through awareness. You begin to understand that peace is not something you find. It's something you create by refusing to feed chaos. You learn detachment, the art of letting go without bitterness. You learn to love people but not depend on them, to care deeply but not cling, to help others but not lose yourself in the process. That's the paradox of the loner sage. You feel more connected to everything, even as you spend more time alone. You begin to see patterns others can't. You see how people chase pleasure but run from meaning. How they fear silence because silence reveals who they really are. You see the world's obsession with appearance, and you realize how rare true presence has become. Most people live on the surface, reacting, chasing, defending, pretending. But when you go deep into solitude, you reach the core, the still point where nothing can disturb you. That's where the power lies. That's where the real transformation begins. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. They all taught that solitude is not weakness. It's strength in its purest form. Because only in silence can you hear reason over impulse. Only in stillness can you master emotion over reaction. And Alan Watts echoed the same truth. You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. When you grasp this, you stop feeling lonely, because you realize you're never truly alone. You're connected to everything in a way words can't describe. But it's not easy. The path of the loner sage demands discipline. You'll face your own mind, and that can be terrifying. You'll confront your past, your fears, your patterns. You'll watch the ego try to drag you back to comfort. It'll whisper, "You're missing out. You're falling behind. You need people to be happy. And that's when you must remember. Happiness built on dependence is a cage. True happiness is freedom from needing anything to be whole. Solitude teaches you that. It shows you that peace isn't the absence of people, it's the presence of self. The loner sage doesn't isolate out of bitterness. He isolates to purify his energy, to master his emotions, to align with truth. Because when you finally emerge from solitude, you're not the same. You speak less but mean more. You move slower but with purpose. You desire less but feel richer. And most importantly, you stop chasing people. Because you understand, the right ones will always recognize your silence. They will meet you not in noise, but in presence. That's the secret. When you no longer need connection, you attract connection that's real. You stop begging for attention and start commanding respect. Not through arrogance, but through energy. Through depth. Through the quiet confidence of someone who has mastered the self. The loner sage is not alone, he is aligned. And that alignment, that stillness, that unshakable peace, is what makes the awakened so rare and so misunderstood. Because while the world chases distraction, you found something far greater. The ability to sit in silence and feel whole. Section 4. Transformation into the observer, power beyond the ego. At some point, the silence no longer feels like emptiness. It begins to feel like power. Because through solitude, something extraordinary happens. You stop identifying with the noise in your mind. You become the observer. You begin to realize that you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your desires, not your fears. You are the one watching them all. This realization changes everything. When you live as the observer, the world loses its power to shake you. Insults stop wounding you. Praise stops inflating you. You no longer move through life reacting, you respond. With calm, with clarity, with consciousness. The observer within you is untouchable. It's beyond approval or rejection. It's the pure awareness behind every experience. And once you awaken to that, ego begins to dissolve. The ego thrives on attachment, on me, mine, my story, my pain. It needs conflict to exist. It needs comparison to feel alive. It feeds on validation because without it, it disappears. But when you become the observer, you see through that game. You realize the ego is just a survival mechanism. A mask the mind wears to navigate the world. Necessary, yes, but never real. Alan Watts once said, "The ego is nothing other than the focus of conscious attention." It's not an enemy, it's just a tool. And awakening means learning to use that tool, without letting it use you. When you identify with the observer, you stop chasing significance and start embodying serenity. Because now, your sense of worth no longer depends on external things. Not money, not status, not relationships. You become self-sustaining. You become emotionally independent. That's true power, not control over others, but mastery over self. This is where many on the path of awakening step into their greatest transformation. You begin to move differently. You walk through storms without fear. You lose interest in arguing because truth needs no defense. You let go quicker. You forgive easier. And when something disturbs your peace, you no longer fight it, you observe it until it dissolves. That's what it means to live as the observer. You don't suppress emotion, you witness it. You don't chase happiness, you rest in awareness. You don't try to fix the world, you align yourself with it. And in that alignment, life begins to flow. You realize how much of your suffering came from resistance, from trying to control what was never yours to control. You realize that peace isn't something you create. It's something you uncover when you stop fighting reality. That's the essence of both Stoicism and spiritual awakening. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Alan Watts said, "Trying to control the future is like trying to take the current out of a river." Both pointed to the same truth. Control is an illusion. And once you let go of it, you discover something much greater: influence. The kind of influence that comes from presence, not pressure. From inner mastery, not outer manipulation. That's what makes the awakened so powerful. They no longer play life like a game to be won. They play it like a melody to be experienced. They stop seeking meaning because they become it. The observer doesn't chase destiny. It dances with it. And here where dark psychology flips. Most people are slaves to their emotions, manipulated by fear, ego, and approval. But the observer can't be manipulated because they see the mechanism behind every move. When someone tries to provoke you, you don't react, you read them. You see their insecurity disguised as dominance, their projection disguised as judgment, their fear disguised as arrogance. You begin to see through everything. And that's what terrifies people about the awakened. You can't be lied to. You can't be controlled. You can't be seduced by the illusions that keep others enslaved. You've moved beyond ego, into the realm of awareness. And in that realm, life becomes a play, not a prison. You can enjoy the roles, the wins, the losses, the heartbreaks, without forgetting that you are not the actor. You are the screen on which the movie unfolds. Alan Watts compared life to music. He said, "We thought of life by analogy with a journey, with a pilgrimage which had a serious purpose at the end. But the point of the music is the music. When you live as the observer, you stop trying to arrive. You start dancing to the rhythm of existence. This is the most liberating point of awakening, where peace replaces pressure, awareness replaces anxiety, and stillness becomes your greatest strength. Because when you live as the observer, you finally understand. You were never meant to control the waves, only to learn how to surf them." Section 5. The return, living awake among the asleep. When you reach this stage of awakening, something profound happens. You no longer crave to escape the world, you begin to understand it. You no longer look at others with judgment, but with quiet compassion. Because now you see clearly, everyone is exactly where they're supposed to be on their journey. This is what the ancient philosophers called the return. It's when the awakened soul comes back, not as a victim of the world, but as a silent master within it. You no longer fight illusion, you observe it. You no longer try to wake others, you embody what awakening looks like. Because your peace teaches louder than your preaching ever could. You realize that being spiritually awake doesn't mean you have to isolate yourself forever. It means you can walk through chaos without letting it infect your peace. You can stand in noise and still be silent. You can be surrounded by asleep minds and not lose your awareness. You begin to live differently. You move slower. You speak less. You choose presence over performance. And while most people still chase status, validation, and noise, you've discovered a deeper rhythm. The rhythm of alignment. Alan Watts once said, "When the mind is in the present, it is in complete harmony with the movement of life." And that's what you've become, harmony. No longer pulled by desire, no longer enslaved by fear. You walk through the world like a monk in a marketplace. You see the games, the illusions, the endless loops of human drama, and you smile. Not because you're superior, but because you finally understand that no one truly wins or loses in a dream. Everyone wakes up when it's time. You stop trying to convince people of your truth. You stop forcing understanding. Because you realize awakening can't be taught, it can only be triggered. You can plant a seed, but it must rain inside them for it to grow. So instead of arguing, you live in truth. You embody it. You radiate it. And those meant to awaken will feel it. This is the paradox of awakening. You become detached, yet more loving. You withdraw from the world, yet serve it more deeply. You expect nothing, yet receive everything. Because when you no longer need the world to complete you, life begins to pour into you freely. This is where dark psychology transforms into wisdom. You no longer fear manipulation, judgment, or rejection. Because you see through them all. You see that every human behavior, no matter how cruel, comes from one root, unconscious suffering. And so you forgive. Not to excuse but to transcend. Because forgiveness doesn't free them, it frees you. You become like water. Fluid, adaptable, unstoppable. You stop forcing outcomes and start flowing through them. You trust that everything unfolding, even the pain, even the solitude, is shaping you into something greater. That's what success really is for the spiritually awake. Not the accumulation of things, but the liberation from needing them. Not conquering the world, but conquering yourself. You no longer chase wealth, you embody abundance. You no longer seek attention, you radiate confidence. You no longer pursue love, you become love. That's what the world doesn't understand about awakening. It's not about escaping reality. It's about seeing reality so clearly that you no longer need to escape it. You can walk among the asleep without losing yourself. You can love those who misunderstand you without needing their approval. You can stand alone without feeling lonely. Because you've realized that aloneness and all oneness are the same thing. This is where the awakened become leaders. Not influencers in the modern sense, but true guides, silent, grounded, unmovable. They don't shout to be heard. They simply exist, and their existence shifts the energy of everyone around them. When you reach this stage, your purpose becomes clear. To live awake among the asleep. To bring light into dark spaces. To walk through illusion without becoming part of it. To remind humanity, not through words but through being, that peace is possible. Because in the end, awakening is not about escaping the human experience. It's about fully living it, consciously, courageously, compassionately. And maybe that's why spiritually awake people don't have many friends. Because while the world seeks comfort in numbers, you've found peace in truth. And truth doesn't need a crowd. It just needs one soul brave enough to live it. So walk your path. Even if it's lonely. Even if no one understands. Even if the world calls you strange. Because those who once doubted you will one day see it. That your silence was not emptiness, but mastery. That your solitude was not rejection, but transformation. That your distance was not arrogance, but alignment. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to wake up. And now you have. If this message resonated with your soul, take a moment to breathe. And remember, your peace is your power. Protect it, nurture it, live by it. Now, if this video spoke to you, like it to support this message. Comment below with your own original motivational quote. And turn on notifications so you never miss a future awakening from Stoic life. Because this is only the beginning.